Good morning, guys. Tony Maritato here. So let's talk about making the decision to hire a physical therapist. Now, it could be an OT, it could be an SLP, but effectively, you're a private practice owner, maybe you're a mobile therapist, and you're making the decision on when should you hire that first clinical position. So I got an email the other night. It was an exciting email. This was a mobile therapist whose practice was growing quicker than she expected. She was reaching out to me because she's ready to move to the next phase, which is hiring a clinical staff or a clinical team. And she's asking me about the logistics of it, but really before I can answer those questions, should it be a contractor, a 1099, or should it be a W-2? How do you handle workers' compensation? What do you do for benefits and coverage? Before we get into any of that, first we have to understand what is the goal of your business. Now, every person's business is going to have a different function, a different goal. For me, right now, my business, 22 years in private practice, it's time freedom. I will sacrifice profitability. I will sacrifice growth. I will sacrifice every other aspect of my business to focus on the number one true goal of my business right now, which is time freedom. That's why I can be here recording this video for you guys, because I've got a clinical team, I've got an administrative team that are in the clinic, that are treating the patients, that are delivering the services, that are paying the bills. So I want my time. But for somebody else, or even for me back in 2003, 2005, I was in it for growth. I wanted to build a sellable asset. I wanted to build a structure that I could step away from and sell to another therapist, to a private equity, to something else. Well, if my goal is to build a sellable asset, I might take a loss in profit. I might focus on hiring a clinical team, hiring an administrative team, a marketing director. Every moment of my time as the owner of the business, as the founder, should be dedicated to assembling the team that adds value to a potential buyer. That is the primary goal. But if my goal is profitability, right? Let's say I'm a mobile therapist. I'm going into this for profitability. I want to replace my full-time clinical job with treating my own patients. I've got a goal of hitting $150,000 a year net profit after expenses. And what I'm finding is that my practice is growing, but my goal is profitability, and specifically $150,000 a year. I want to achieve $150,000 a year net profit with as little time commitment, as little extra work as needed. I don't want responsibilities. I don't want to be, on the hook for payroll. I don't want any of that stuff. Well, for the person who says that, hiring another PT is probably not the solution. I understand it's exciting to see your practice grow, and it's exciting to have patients reaching out to you. There are many therapists who will create a wait list instead of hiring another therapist. I don't necessarily think that's the best option, but that is an option that's available. What I'm going to say is I would look at taking the lowest profitability component of your schedule, maybe the bottom 20%, 25% of your caseload. These are typically the patients that absolutely benefit from your service, but they're really contributing to the majority of the cost. They're producing the minority of the profits, and they're draining the resources that you have available. Rather than hiring a therapist to treat this population, because that's probably what's going to happen. You're going to hire a therapist. You're not going to give that therapist your best clients. You're probably going to give the therapist the clients that are the least profitable for you, that you want to get off your schedule anyway. So rather than taking on the financial burden of a full-time salary or part-time or contractor and having to schedule that therapist and manage all of the logistics of that, why not just refer out that lower 20-25% of your caseload? And then focus the time you have now, because once you unload that portion of your caseload, you can then dedicate the time you have to improving the profitability of the top 20-25% of your caseload. Are there more cash-based services you can provide? Can you raise your prices? There are countless stories of therapists who are undercharging in their cash rates, and they raise their prices and nobody even blinks an eye because the client knows that it was already too cheap. So I would tell you the first thing you need to consider before hiring any clinical staff is understand what is the primary goal of your business. You could have 10 goals, 20 goals, 50 goals. You're going to sacrifice to meet that one primary goal. Once you've identified what is that primary goal, ask yourself, is this the best way to achieve that goal? If my goal is $150,000 in profitability and right now I'm at $125,000, hiring a therapist who's going to cost $90,000 a year plus all of the time drain that goes into onboarding another therapist, that's going to set you back rather than move you forward. Maybe you can find that extra $25,000, $30,000 in the margins by making a couple decisions that you otherwise didn't think were available. But if your goal is growing a business, having a tangible asset, something that you can sell, something that can operate outside of you, move you away from direct patient care, then let's talk. Then now we can have the conversation around, okay, what goes into hiring a therapist? What's the compensation I'm going to offer? What does an offer look like? What happens when that therapist gets sick and I need coverage for that therapist that I wasn't planning on otherwise? You know, all of these things will come into play. First, we need to understand what is the goal of the business. Guys, I'll catch you on the next video.